Last but not least, this is the part of the NBA offseason where a lot of us tend to take a break from the league. We tend to relax, especially after the free agency period and the NBA draft. But the Knicks 2021 Summer League team is really going to be worth watching this year due to the fact that 7 out of the 15 players can have a big impact on the final roster and can also contribute in the Knicks having a deep depth chart at almost every position. And when I say 7 out of the 15 guys, I'm excluding Kevin Knox. Kevin Knox is going to make a return in this year's Summer League, but I'm excluding him. So there's definitely a good amount of guys worth paying attention to. And this is kind of surprising due to the fact that we finished as a 4th seed, and also during the draft, we kind of traded down to get other picks. But yeah, we still ended up with a very interesting Summer League roster, especially with 2 Euro stashes and a bunch of guards that definitely could fit Tibbs' system. And to all you Frank Ntilikina stands that was in the comments of the last video I made, it's definitely not surprising that he's off the roster, especially due to the fact that the Knicks, in between the first round and second round, drafted a bunch of guards that it was highly unlikely that he'll make a return to the roster.
And the evidence is going to show it wasn't enough.
So before I get into the details of the roster, let's take a look at the schedule. The Knicks will play the Raptors on August 8th at 4:30, then Wednesday, August 10th versus the Lakers at 10 p.m., then Friday, August 13th versus Detroit, then Saturday, August 14th at 8 p.m. versus the Cavs. And then they'll kind of have like a playoff, knockout round either on the 16th or the 17th of August. So it'll be a quick little summer league, especially due to the fact that the NBA offseason is going to have a quick turnaround as they're trying to start up next season right on time. So training camp isn't that far along. I believe it's sometime in September. So we're not that far off from the season actually starting back up again. So for those of you watching the video version, I'm going to pull up the lineup right here. And then we'll start with Quentin Grimes. Of course, the Knicks traded down to the 25th pick to pick this guy. He's a 6'5" guard out of the University of Houston. He's a 3-and-D guy, and you'll notice this trend throughout some of the younger players the Knicks picked in this year's draft. They tend to fit in Tibbs' system. He's a hard-nosed defender, but he needs to improve in his handles, and he also needs to remain consistent in his spot-up shooting, especially from 3. But at the end of the day, he could be a nice combination with RJ Barrett at the perimeter, especially in today's league with all these dynamic guards. Next up is Tyler Hall, a guard out of Montana State. He went undrafted in 2019, and he's on and off with the Westchester Knicks. So he'll be trying to definitely make this roster or continue his journeyman experience through the professional ranks. But these 2019-2020 undrafted guys, I'm wondering what's been their experience, especially due to the fact that the pandemic happened, there being no summer league, and I'm pretty sure there was a lot of delays in the G League starting up or just overall the operations. I'm wondering how they're panning out because there has to be a new level of degree of difficulty of just trying to make these rosters, especially dealing with the league going through an influx with the scheduling the past 2 seasons. Next up is Ruckus, and I'm not even going to try to attempt to say his last name, but he's definitely a Euro stash, and he's one of the draft picks that we got out of OKC when we traded the 32nd pick. We got the 34th and the 36th pick, and we selected him with one of the picks. Of course, he's 20 years old. He's a 6'4" point guard, and right now he's transitioning from playing from the Lithuanian league into the Spanish league, which is the most difficult league overseas. So it'll be interesting throughout the year to pay attention to how he's making that transition. But he's definitely a stash for right now because he can't play on our roster right away, I believe, for another year. But he definitely got some game. He got like Jason Kidd handles. He has good vision. But when he attacks the rim, which he does fearlessly, he needs to practice his finishing. But overall, this was an interesting stash pick because I think the play for the Knicks here is to see how he makes that transition from the Lithuanian league into the Spanish league, which once again is the toughest league on the international level. Now, next up is Kevin Knox. He's on the final year of his rookie scale contract. And for Kevin Knox, his experience in the NBA has been very unique because the Knicks were going through a transition period, especially in the front office. but he has played for 3 different head coaches, in which all 3 of them were reluctant to give him starter minutes or just decent minutes in general, which is a major kind of red flag right there. But this season, he's going to have to fight against players that were paid an exorbitant amount of money over him, like Evan Fournier and Alec Burks. So you already know how the politics with guys getting paid big money plays out. They tend to get the minutes, as we can see how it played out with Gordon Hayward when he was in the Boston Celtics uniform. Even though he was hurt because he was getting paid a lot of money, he had to play. So Kevin Knox has an uphill battle in order to get minutes, and I'm not surprised he asked to play in this year's summer league, even though he's entering his 4th year. And keep in mind, this current Knicks regime in the front office did not draft him, so they're not going to be as obligated to put in time and resources into Knox. Next up is Miles Mcbride. Once again, the Knicks been following a theme here, drafting guards that can defend. Now with Mcbride here, he makes great passes in transition, sort of like Frank Ntilikina. He's not a floor general or off rip. He has the ball in his hands. He's going to find a passer. He's more of a guy that when he's making a cut, he's a good passer in that moment right there where he could find another guy open for a shot. So he's definitely a great passer in transition. He's also great at defending off screens, sort of like Jrue Holiday. As you can see, he's always fighting through the screen, especially during the NBA Finals. He's sort of like that. And Mcbride also likes to shoot in motion, off the screens, in transition. He loves to shoot pull-ups. So as you can see, the Knicks continue their theme of drafting two-way guards. Next up is the center Justin Payton. He was a 16th overall pick by the Chicago Bulls in 2017. So far, he's been a G League journeyman and he plays for the Westchester Knicks. So he'll be fighting with Jericho Sims, which I'll cover in a minute, as far as fighting for minutes during the Summer League. Next up is one of the fan favorites, and of course, that'll be Immanuel Quickley, and this will be his first Summer League campaign ever. So he has an opportunity now to practice his offseason moves. He definitely was practicing with Team USA before they went out to the Olympics, so that was great for him. So we get to see some of the improvements he made playing with a lot of those all-star players. And also, Immanuel Quickley has a chance to practice some of his offensive moves that the league now has sort of tweaked, because there's some things that he does where he can't draw the fouls the same way. There will now be offensive fouls. The moves I'm talking about is sometimes when he goes in the paint, he looks at the guys behind him, sort of like how Trae Young does, and he stops and kind of jumps into them. He can no longer do that, so he's going to have to work out a new move to replace that, perhaps to get to the free throw line. But overall, last year, Immanuel was thrown into the NBA without any summer league or barely enough practices or preseason. And it was impressive to see the transition that he made. And it'll be very interesting to see what transitions he makes this offseason while having a full number of reps underneath him, especially at the pro level. Next up is Quentin Rose, a 2020 undrafted forward. He signed with the Westchester Knicks in March of 2021, and unfortunate for him, he's part of that 2020 class where the league was going through the pandemic, and I'm pretty sure it was hard for him to get back on track, especially being an undrafted player, the number of reps and programs that were available to help him get up to the next level. But he is an athletic point forward. He's a good defender, but offensively, sometimes he's all over the place. He has to improve on the consistency of his shooting. His finishing at the rim is questionable, and also he's going to have to improve on his shot selection. It seems like most of those troubles come from him not getting enough games in on a professional level, and that may be due to the fact that he's a 2020 undrafted player. Once again, going through that pandemic created a huge gray area for players of that class. So hopefully for him, he gets more game reps and that improves over time. Next up is Wayne Selden. He's a 3-and-D guard, 2016 undrafted player. He's pretty much a journeyman, has been on a few NBA 10-day contracts for the Pelicans, the Grizzlies. He actually played in Israel, and he actually had a game, believe it or not, in the NBA where he dropped 31 points against the Pelicans. But mainly, he's a 3-and-D player with a large wingspan who has good defensive techniques, does not get into foul trouble, and moves his feet pretty well to defend, even though he's not super athletic or has a quick burst or first step, which on the offensive end leads him to sometimes not being able to finish at the rim or blowing by his defenders. But you could see a continuing theme here where the Knicks are getting players that have good defensive principles, and you can see it play out from the starting 15 all the way to the Westchester Knicks and the guys that they put in to be part of this summer league team. Okay, next up is Amir Sims, a 2021 undrafted player. The Knicks signed him to a training camp deal. He is a power forward, 6'8", 245 pounds. He's a solid rebounder and he can hit open threes. And he's also a good passer. So he'll be definitely competing with Jericho Sims and Justin Payton for minutes at power forward and center. Next up is the Knicks 58th overall pick, Jericho Sims, a 6'10" center out of Texas. Super athletic, and he's definitely a high flyer, dunker. I mean, he's a guy that the Garden would really like. He's a hustler, an energizer. He does all the dirty work, and him being in Texas for all 4 years helped him develop. So on the Summer League roster, he will be competing with Amir Sims and Tyler Payton for minutes at the center and power forward position. Now, even though he's 6'10", he has a nice wingspan and he has hops, man. I believe he broke the record in the combine as far as vertical leap. So with that vertical leap, he is a rim protector and he plays a lot bigger than his 6'10" frame. So if he performs well in the summer league, he will have stiff competition with Mitch, Noel, and Obi Toppin at the power forward position. Next up, making his summer league debut is Obi Toppin, aka Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now the summer league this year is going to serve for a nice measuring stick to see how well he has developed his three-point shot. As the Knicks right now, they're going to need a stretch four at some point on this roster, because we've seen last year in the playoffs against the Hawks, it was a weak point, because had we had a stretch four, we could have played Randall at center, thus pulling Capella out of the paint. But at the time, of course, we didn't have no player of that caliber, and Obi is not well polished enough to even step in at that key moment and make that happen, especially with no summer league and barely any preseason. But with the Hawks, he did play solid minutes in the playoffs. He had a stretch, I believe, either in games 4 or 3, where he came in off the bench and he hit a couple of threes. He had a nice couple of transition points and he played solid defense. So he showed spurts of what he could be. And just looking at his shots from last season, he shot 30% from 3, which can improve. So it was nice to see him hit a couple of knockdown threes last year, which we didn't even know he really had that in his arsenal. And with him coming off practicing with Team USA, going into Summer League, we should be getting a glimpse of a much improved and more confident Obi Toppin. Next up is Reed Travis, a 2019 undrafted power forward out of Kentucky. Of course, that Kentucky connection, you know it's got to be on this roster. But he's 6'8", 240, and he's played professionally in Japan. He's a solid, strong, stocky player, not athletic at all, and he's a good finisher around the rim, especially in the low post. But unfortunately for him, he needs an outside shot, and he doesn't get too many blocks and steals. And normally athleticism tends to get you those steals and blocks. Overall, he seems like a low post, slow tempo, old school player. And I'm telling you, that Kentucky connection goes a long way, boy. It's getting guys experience and paid. As this position, in my opinion, seems like it's a favor for a favor. My guy needs experience just before he goes overseas. It sounds like this to me, but it is what it is. Next up is a player that a lot of Knicks fans should pay very close attention to, and that's Luca Valdosa. The Knicks signed him back in May, and he is a 2017 undrafted player out of Argentina. He's 25 years old, and the Knicks have him under a 4-year, $13.6 million deal, with the first year guaranteed and the last 3 years partially guaranteed. And the reason why I believe the Knicks picked him up is that he has shown improvement by leading his team to winning the championship in Spain while being the best player on the floor. So the Knicks international scouts were right on that, as that championship game made a lot of noise because he ended up hitting the game-winning shot. So just him showing improvements made from 2017 till now was enough for him to be on scouts' radar. And shout out to the Knicks for quickly acting on it. And keep in mind, he is a guard that can play both point guard and shooting guard at 6'3". He sort of has a Ginobili type game. He's not afraid to get a little fancy on the offensive end, especially with the dribbling and the turnaround jump shots. And he's very bold for attacking the rim the way he does. There's a lot of confidence oozing out of his game, because some of the moves he pulls, you have to have complete confidence in yourself. I mean, this guy is doing turnaround, fadeaway step backs from 3. So definitely he's one of the 7 players I was referring to be on your radar for Summer League. And next up on the Summer League roster is MJ Walker, a 2021 6'5" undrafted forward. He is a 3-and-D guy who has good skills offensively on the move, but at times struggles with consistent shooting. And once again, this is a theme you're going to see with a lot of players that were drafted in 2020 and 2021, especially with the league kind of going through their flux with the scheduling. I mean, he has good skills offensively, but not on the move. And you could just tell he hasn't had enough experience on the pro level as far as games played. Because remember, these guys got to adjust their games according to the professional level, which sometimes it might be faster than what they're used to playing, or there's certain adjustments or certain details that they have to pay much more close attention to. And just looking at MJ Walker, he's going to have to improve on his ball handling. And they question if he can guard quicker players on the pro level. But once again, overall, mostly in this roster, you see consistency with the Knicks selecting 3-and-D guys or just two-way players, especially to guard the perimeter. But once again, I'm going to mention the 7 key players to pay attention to during Summer League, and that is Quentin Grimes, Ruckus, aka I don't know how to say his last name because that shit is just too crazy, Miles Mcbride, Emmanuel Quickly, Obi Toppin, Jericho Sims, and Luca Valdosa. Those are the 7 players that clearly should be on everyone's radar, and we should be looking at their performances closely. You guys enjoy the Summer League games, and don't forget to check out the channel playlist, as there's other shows you guys could check out, especially pertaining to things around the league. And also Chopping the Sticks, that's a show for you guys to hit me up. I'm pretty sure some of you guys are on 2K or FIFA or other games. We could chop it up about culture, music, fashion, tech, business, sort of like barbershop talk, and I'll feature it on the channel. Just hit up the Discord group chat if you're interested. So you guys definitely stay safe in these Rona streets. Until next time, peace.